everyone. Welcome to Lydia Nicole's Acting Smarter podcast. Today, we are on a mission to share with you what is going on with the unions that serve the actors, mainly SAG-AFTRA. You may have already been seeing in the news that the Writers Guild of America is on strike and the SAG-AFTRA union is also on strike. We want to help give you clarification as to what is going on, why we are on strike, what the problems are, and what you, the public, can do to help us to get this solved. My first question is, why are we on strike?
It's a long list. We're on strike because we were in negotiations with the AMPTP. They represent all the major studios and the major production companies that most of us work under, and we've been in negotiations for them for 4 weeks, and we just couldn't agree to. We couldn't agree to a contract. We want things, which I'll go into. Would you like me to go into that now?
Yeah, go ahead into it now.
We want things that they're not willing to give us. We want better minimum compensation. We want better money for residual streaming. We want better contributions for pension health plans. We want to protect ourselves from them stealing our voice and likeness with artificial intelligence and being able to use it without compensating. And of course, I think one of the biggest issues that has driven a lot of anger, which I think Patilla wanted to refer to, is the whole self-tape thing, which has caused a lot of anger because a lot of unpaid labor has been put on the actors. So there's a lot of anger out there, and we just couldn't come to an agreement, not even close.
And this is Bertilla. Look, it's been building up over the years. What I have found is an enormous amount of disrespect that's just exponentially growing and growing and growing. And it began about 10 or 15 years with just a small thing. They just decided that they weren't going to honor our contracts and give us our per diem on the day, like it says per diem. So they were actually telling actors, oh yeah, your per diem is going to be included in your paycheck. So a per diem is given when you travel. So for instance, many shows do not shoot in Los Angeles anymore. So I had to go up to Portland to shoot a show up there for a while. And when I walked into so when I'm in Portland, they put me up as a courtesy. They do give me a nice hotel room. However, it's usually a high-end hotel, which is great. It's terrific. But most actors don't have the kind of money to spend on a $30 breakfast or a $40 dinner at a hotel because you get back, you're tired. So per diem is the money they give you daily while you're out of town. But they decided to completely ignore that contract, that part of our contract, and start to choose to include it in our paycheck. So actors had to walk into accounting offices, as I did when I was working in Portland, and tell her, look, you owe me my per diem. I get it daily. I don't get it at the end of the week. It is in the contract. It's very clear. I mean, per diem itself means by the day. So it started with those little things, and it kept going. I mean, this was the new practice across the board. All the production companies that the studios hire to make their stuff, across the board, they were doing this, right? So I think it began with that little thing, because it's not a little thing. It's not a little thing for actors who are making $25,000, $30,000 a year to go stay at a Four Seasons, which we're all grateful for, but cannot afford. That's why we have per diem in the contract. But I do believe that began well, I'm not going to say it began it, but it began to create a sense of being disrespected. I felt disrespected. Now, I've gone in to ask for per diem at other productions and been told no. Knowing they're breaking the contract, I bring the contract, I show them the contract, and they don't care. They still say no. Doesn't matter how many times we've called the studios, called the production companies, they just don't do it. They've even actually kept Exhibit Gs from actors. Exhibit G is the sheet of paper. In other words, it's our time clock. All right? Because Hollywood is a factory town. And that's our time clock. They give us a sheet. They tell you punched in at 6 a.m. You're out at 7 p.m. and we know if we've incurred any overtime, um, and just how long we've been there for the day. They started to withhold Exhibit Gs from actors on big, huge movies. I'm not talking about broke productions. I'm talking about A plus and B productions. So little by little, it just began to deteriorate our relationship.
The other part of it is the self tapes.
But there were interim issues also. There were casting people using casting workshops, sending their assistants to meet actors and charging actors $40, pretending that was uh, okay. Like they're going to give actors an acting class, but really what they were doing were meeting actors, and actors were paying $40 to be met. That turned into then little by little. We were already self taping a little bit the the pandemic, where self tape became the norm, right, for that year. And here's the thing: the problem with self tape. Look, I'm sitting in front of an 8-foot table. I could fill it with the equipment we've had to buy. My husband is usually my reader. He works for free. He sets up also. I break down. That's all free labor that they're getting. All right. And what we're doing is then we have to judge our own job. I'm sorry, I'm not a casting person, nor am I a producer. I'm an actor. I'm not meant to look at my work and decide this is the one I want to send, but fine, I'll send that scene. Okay, great, got it. But this is all free labor, free time, also outside of our contract, by the way, because in our contract, if we go into an interview and they make us wait for an hour, they have to pay us for our time. When we are sitting in an interview for more than an hour, and sometimes I have waited 2 and 3 hours to get an audition in, they have to pay the actor. So that they also subvert the contract that way. They also have to give us a full 24 hours notice so that we have time to memorize our sides. So it became very abusive. They were starting to send 12 pages I got once. Needless to say, I told the casting director to forget it. I mean, it was for the next day. And that's not 24 hours. When do I sleep? Or on a Friday, when we as a union have weekends off. So I've now got to work over the weekend to learn all my lines and everything for that, to turn it in by Monday at 10 a.m. for the casting people. And we're saving them time and money. They are trickling down their expenses to us. Okay? All they have to do now is look at our tape for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, because that's all they do. They don't need 12 pages. Then they also have offers out at the same time. So we're using all our time and energy, unpaid, getting other people to work for us, other people to set up for us. Never mind the editing equipment you need on your computer. And then they're asking for wide angle shots in apartments. Give me a break.
Well, I will also add to that. You're very fortunate in that you have William to help you with the stuff. There are actors who are not tech savvy, and they pay for every self tape they do. They go to a place and they get the self tape done, and that's 75, $100 that they don't have, but they're trying to get the job. So everybody's operating on faith, dishing out of their pockets, trying to give so they can get.
Well, not only that, Lydia, let me tell you, there was a scandal last year because a casting director who actually asked for self-tapes, who's a massive major motion picture casting director, decided to set up a self-tape room in her facility, in her office, which is huge and beautiful in West LA, and then say, oh, actors, if you want to come in and self-tape here, we'll do it with you for $35 for the first 15 minutes, 70 for a half hour, whatever the prices were. So that's absolutely insane. So now, and I know there's a law about physical, there's some law, and I'm not actually totally clear on what the language of the law is, but we're actually now paying for a job interview. That's what it is. And they've trickled down that expense to us because casting directors can just at home look at our reel and go and swipe through 10, 15 seconds, maybe if they watch a reel. They know immediately what they want or don't want. Meanwhile, we put in 2-3 hours at our home preparing for that audition. They can sit home now and just go through our, they don't have to rent an office. So it's all trickle down expenses. Now, I will say this in defense of casting directors. They also have had their salaries sliced. So I'm just going to add that.
sliced and diced, and some of them have had to leave the business because they've lost so much work. They can't compete, they can't keep up. William, I have I want you to break down, if you can, the difference between a union and a guild.
Basically, there's been a lot of argument about the difference between a union and a guild, and it's a really specious argument because we're a union. People get caught up with the name because we have guild written into it, which I think dates back to the Middle Ages or whatever,
That's
where
right.
there were artisan guilds. So we're an artisan guild, but we're structured as a labor union. We're structured under the National Labor Relations Act as a labor union. And we can call it a guild because we're a bunch of artists running around. We're not, we're not auto workers, although there's an argument to be made that auto workers, and from my point of view, have a certain artistic aptitude as well. They're putting together cars with the help of robots these days, and the producers would like to replace us with robots too, I think, at some point. But yeah, we're basically a union. We're structured that way. We're structured that way in the eyes of the law, and the guild comes in. I've seen massive arguments on social media about whether we're a union or a guild, which crack me up because we're basically a union and a union guild, but just put the artistic flavor into it.
Distinction gets confusing for people because I think they think that all unions are supposed to post work or get you work. And that's not necessarily true. There are some unions who do have boards, like Equity, the theater union, that will post auditions and things in their hall. When you go to Equity in New York, right? And that's fine. Okay, we of course deal in huge volumes, so it's a little different, and we don't do that. So I think that's what people get confused about.
I love it. Thank you for the clarification.
I want to touch on a couple of issues that we've been dealing with in the room that I think are really important to know. These days when you get a self-tape audition, they don't require you to memorize, but anybody who's worked their way as an actor knows that the more you're off book, the more you know your script, the better your audition will be. What's happening is with the self-tape, they're sending us 10, 12, 15-page auditions, then asking us to turn those auditions around in less than 24 hours. And they want everything. They want you sitting in a chair. I remember an audition for a job she got. They actually, there were 3 scenes, and one of the scenes was her sitting quietly in a chair. They wanted us to tape that. Now, if you walk into a casting office, that's okay.
She did
get the job. They want the whole production.
Yeah,
they want the production.
They want everything, and we're going, you don't need to see everything. We know the casting directors will look at the first 10 seconds and move on. You're either right or you're not right. If you're right, they'll watch more of it. But so why are they putting all this effort into us to sit there and spend hours really preparing something? It's a lot different than walking into the room. And if self-tapes are here to stay, which is part of the issue we're coming with, because self-tapes, virtual auditions, we want to be able to ask for a virtual audition. We want to be able to say, no, we want to see these first people in person. We want to have some parameters around it so that we're not spending our entire day or our weekend, which is I have someone who jokes about they have no weekends anymore because their auditions all come in on Friday. They have kids, they have whole weekends planned, but their auditions come in on Friday and are due back 9 a.m. Monday morning. So one of the big issues with this is the self-tape issue, and it's probably the one that costs the least to them and the most to us, and it's really not where our money is, but it's about the integrity and the respect that we deserve in this profession. We bring a lot to play in this profession. We've even asked questions. I have to tell you this because this one kills me. We ask them, all we want is like a basic idea. Is it a comedy or a drama? Is it this or that? They're like, oh, no, that's proprietary information. We can't tell you that because we're worried we'll give it away. We're sitting over here going, but we need to know whether it's a comedy or a drama. We need to know basic facts about the script that we're about to spend some time giving you an idea of what we'll bring to play.
Or they'll tell you that it's due on Monday, and then on Monday you've hustled yourself and done it and got it in, or whatever day, Tuesday, and then they come out and they go, oh, we've extended the deadline. And I'm like, I guess you're still waiting for that client that you put the offer out to, so you'll look at a few more people while you wait to see if that client accepts the offer. It's insidious. And it's disrespectful. Plus, it's outside of our contract. So the structure of things has been altered by them and over and over and over. And they just don't want our contracts to keep up with what changes have been made to the business. So you can't have a contract that says you get 24 hours. If you're given any kind of delay, you get a payment. None of that is applicable, right? So it doesn't matter that it takes 2 hours to get it all together, edit, do everything, and send it off, because that just it no longer fits in the structure of our contract. So they changed the game, and they want us to play the old game. No, we want to play the game we're in. That's what we want to play, not the one they think we should play.
One of the things that I heard as soon as we went on strike, even though 98% of our union voted to strike, one of the things that I heard were actors having meltdowns because we went on strike. And so, having encountered the 1980 strike, because I had come to Los Angeles in 1978 and I worked for 2 years to get in the union. And the week I got in the union, we went on strike, and we were on strike for 3 months. And I remember walking those picket lines, going to the town hall meetings, doing this stuff. And I was brand new to Hollywood in the sense of, all of the acting. I finally cracked the code. I finally got a job that Taft Hartley'd me into the union, and that was Hill Street Blues. I love you, Stephen Bochco. Rest in heaven. And there I was, looking for an acting job and couldn't go and get an acting job. But one of the things that I learned from that strike was the fact that our union had our back, that we stood firm, to be in rooms to see high paying actors, people that were known in the business, sitting there with you, supporting this strike, saying, no, that is not right, we're not going to do that for this. You guys have, at that time it was the VHSs, that was the big fight, was about the VHSs. They were coming out and we weren't getting any kind of residual for it. But sitting in the room made me feel comforted. It made me feel supported. It made me know that we were going to fight this and we were going to win. And I think as actors, sometimes we lose our minds, which is why we settle for less, which is why we'll take that job and forego the per diem or forego whatever is due us. And I've worked on projects, one in particular that was a big project that I had to fight for all my stuff. I got edited out of the project. A lot of it I got edited out of because I stood up. I said, no, that's whatever the union says I'm supposed to have. That's what I want. If the union says we take a break and you don't give me the break, you got to give me a meal penalty. That is what I want. This is not, we're friends, so I'll forego it. No, this is business. I'm an actor.
Yeah, but I want to interject something. I want you to know it's not so much I think that actors freak out, okay? But I think that actors have been trained to be afraid because we've been bullied. We get bullied, by the people around us, the production companies or whoever, right? I don't want to, people freak out. Okay. I mean, I actually had the thought, wow, if I do this interview and I'm tweeting away all my discontent, will they get angry at me? Well, I can't live my life that way. And that's a result of being bullied, of people saying, well, if you don't take this deal, we're just going to get somebody else. No, we can't raise that for you. But if it was a high pro person, they definitely will be getting 3 times what you're going to make. You're going to get the minimum acceptable pay and you're going to take it. You're going to take it. Even though you've been in this business for 35 years, have 200 credits, you still got to take that minimum acceptable pay because they bully you. They put the fear of God into you. So naturally actors are like, oh my gosh, and I tell them, listen, your acting is as good as your life. And if this is how you approach your life without the integrity and the dignity to stand by who you are and what you're about and ask for what is fair, then honey, don't be in this business. Business requires resilience.
It does, but I would agree with. I mean, I think a lot of actors fear for your job. You know, you
Yeah,
don't
you
want to be
get
the problem.
fearful.
There are substantial threats. There are. We have a friend who does performance capture, and he's been chasing coverage. Basically for the MPTP to recognize that performance capture is real, that it's covered work, and they've fought us every step of the way. Now they'll pay the major stars of Avatar as though they're principal players, but they bring in small troops of people to do all this kind of the atmosphere work, and pay them like background. These are highly trained people. So, and there are people that when they advocate too much on their behalf, they run the risk of creating a problem, unquote, and the fear of being blacklisted. And actors take jobs, or they'll say, oh, I didn't want to make a big deal about my per diem because I don't want to be the problem. I don't want to be the problem on the set because I think generally, you can be a forceful personality like Bertilla Domus here.
I like to think of myself as assertive.
It was assertive.
And I'm glad you say that, because that is what the Guild is for, is to fight for you in those situations where they're mistreating you.
I know, but I want to correct something. We're not just the Guild. We are SAG-AFTRA. We're the Screen Actors Guild, the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. So we are a guild and a federation. We're a union. And let's use that word, because that's what we are. We are a labor union. That's what we are.
And that is who we have. We have a labor union behind us that when people try to mess with us, we can say, hey, SAG-AFTRA, I got a problem on set. Can you come down here?
If I can talk to that, that's one of the biggest issues that we run into on the union side. What staff runs into this issue constantly is actors not calling. We set up a per diem line for people to call, say, I'm not getting my per diem. No one ever calls it because they're too afraid that they won't be anonymous. They're too afraid that they won't. And it takes time. It's like having a union behind you in addition, which I think is something really good for people to know. It's like having a legal team. So say you do a low budget film and it gets sold to Lifetime or Hallmark or whatever, and you never see any residuals. So you file a claim because you're owed that money with the union, and then they have to start pursuing that claim. But oftentimes it takes time. They've got to lay out the legal groundwork. They have to chase down the producers who may have been hiding behind another corporate entity. But what you have done with the union is to hire a legal team, but it only is as good as the members willing to stand up and say, hey, this is a problem. And I'm not afraid of it because my union has my back.
And I will tell you, on every single production that I've worked in out of town, because I think for the last 7 or 8 years, I've only ever worked out of town. I think last year I worked in town, which was great. And I have gone in to ask for my per diem, and I've never had anybody come up to me. I've never had some producer think I was a problem, So actors have to have a little more gumption than that and understand what they're due and act accordingly. I've worked with high pro actors that didn't know certain things about the contract, and I'm telling an AD, no, I don't want that on the face of my contract. And that high pro has come, oh my gosh, Bertilla, is that true? I go, yeah, that's true. And she's like, take it off the face of my contract too. So, there's little tiny things that happen all the time, and it's like grading. My grandma used to say, son muchos los poquitos. So when there's a lot of little things, they add up to a really big thing. And it's not just little things. Look, right now we're asking for more than minimum. We're to raise our minimum by a substantial amount, and it should be. 25 years ago to today, I am only making a little more than double. Okay, on major role minimum, a little more than double on what on the weekly than I made in what's 25 years ago, 1990 something. Okay, so that's crazy, right? We've had higher inflation in some portions of the 80s and the 90s than we do now. We have not had cost of living that actually keep up with cost of living because they'll give us a raise So they'll do the classic 3%, 3%, 3%, or 3%, 2%, 2%, because our contracts last for 3 years. But then in that first year, that 1%, they're going to throw it at our pension and health fund. So we're giving up 1% of our actual raise to sustain our pension and health fund. And let's talk about that, because our pension and health fund has had tremendous cuts to it. So if you're over 65, you can no longer, your residuals no longer count towards qualifying. If you're over 40 with 10 years pension credit, you get no discounted rate on the threshold to qualify anymore.
When I first started in Los Angeles acting after the first strike, I was able to get a full medical coverage from AFTRA, full medical coverage from SAG, and I had full medical coverage from a day job that I had.
Nice.
Back then, it was, I think it was like 6,000. If you made 6,000 as an actor, you could get your coverage. And then it went up to 25,000, which
The 80s.
Oh no, it was less than that. It was
It
like
was
when I
45.
joined SAG
I think it was, yeah.
in '89, it was $2,000 in a year.
Yeah.
was it. So if you only got maybe 3-4 jobs in that year, you were still covered. You know, if you got a couple of good TV shows, you were covered. You got your health care. You didn't have to worry about it.
And a pension credit.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
times have changed. We get it. Fine. But the AMPTP has not changed with the times.
Correct.
And they want to keep us chained, stifle us really to a contract that no longer is relevant to what is happening in the scene today. I mean, honestly, it's extraordinary to me. Extraordinary.
Well, with the residuals, I just want to add one thing because it pisses me off.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that the streamers will send out checks for 8 cents. It costs more money to process that 8 cents
That's
than
right.
what that 8 cents is worth. And yet they tell us they don't have it, but they keep showing it hundreds and hundreds of times. You can watch, I can sit and binge watch something.
We explained that this is, I think, one of the if anything, education is key, right? And the issue with our residuals, and they do not anywhere come near close to what they should be or where they should what they should come from. But I think it's most actors don't understand there are several different types of formulas that we have, and that 8-cent check for a streaming service probably comes what we call a move over residual. So you may have done, say, a network TV show, and then they sell it to Amazon or they sell it to Netflix, and you get 8 cents because it's based on what we call a distributed gross receipts formula. However, what we have gotten better, what we have set into place over the last 2 contract cycles are much better payments for when you are hired directly to make something for Netflix or
Right.
make something for Amazon or make something for HBO Max. Don't get me started on HBO. That's a whole nother issue. Pay television.
Yeah, my
They're
residuals,
actually yearly residuals that are I mean, they're
they're
not
bad.
what
They're terrible.
that's.
Don't even. They're terrible.
All right.
No, really, boo-boo.
You and I have had this conversation. When you compare a $600 residual versus an 8 cents residual, you cannot say that $600 residual is bad.
Well, I can actually, because when you look at it and look, sweetheart,
But I'm trying to explain the different formulas,
All right.
not just
Yes. You're
the
right.
fact of the matter is that TV shows don't run on network anymore, right? They don't, so you don't get that
Only the
3,700.
procedurals. There's like 4 or 5.
Right, right. So you don't get if you made, you get 100% of your compensation for a network rerun up to a cap of 36.96, something like that.
Right.
So if you worked a major role, you'll get a
That's
$3,700. You'll get a $3,700 residual check for that first run, but it may never ever appear on network again. So to go to cable, you'll get $50, or we'll go to a streaming service where you get 8 cents. The point of the matter is on Netflix, for example, if you were to shoot a show directly for Netflix and say you were a co-star, you got paid $1,000. So 90 days after it airs, you'd get another $700, and then a year later, you get another $600. And so that, in and of itself, structurally wise, because it's a set residual, it's a fixed rate, is actually better for you, the actor. Money wise, it's not enough, mind you. We run into the structure. That structure is not bad, but we run into the fact that individual actors are not making enough money. They're not getting those network
Right.
reruns.
This is a great moment to introduce you guys.
Oh,
Husband and wife team, Bertilla Damas, who is an actress who has been doing this for a long, long time, who's been on over 200 projects, who has been on television stage, telenovelas,
yes,
who has done it all, who has trained with some of the best teachers,
I have.
as well as William Charlton,
Right.
who is an actor, very well trained, who also has hundreds of credits to his resume. And he is also part of the negotiating team at SAG-AFTRA. That is why I have them both here, because Bertilla was also one of our union representatives. So they know what's going on in the background. They have a good picture. It's not just, let's talk about something that we know nothing about. They are so well informed. Bertilla is a walking encyclopedia and very opinionated. And that is why she is my friend, because we get to talk. And William is the quiet guy who gets things done. So I have brought them both here because they are actors who know the business, who have worked as actors, who love acting and only want the best for actors.
Just so you know, we met on the board of SAG of the Screen Actors Guild before we merged. We were both part of a merger group that merged the Screen Actors Guild and American Federation of TV and Radio and Artists, and we have been basically, I want to use the word discussing, but it's more like arguing about things.
Honey, we're going into this
13.
is 13, and yeah. Well, look, William is
This is what you get when you marry a Puerto Rican Cuban, William.
You know what? I wouldn't have.
It's never a dull moment.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, I served on the board 5 years. William's been on the board now. I think it's going into your 13th year.
Just to add to my titles, not that it means much, is I'm currently the national vice president for actors.
That's right.
I'm proud of you, William, and I voted for you. I just want you to know my vote got you in.
I'm extremely proud of my husband. All right. This is, I think, I don't know, how many negotiating committees between commercials?
But it's my 10th one.
Yeah.
I do both commercials and TV theatrical. I also am the vice chair of the corporate educational contract, which we used to call industrial, basically teaching videos.
Right.
It's not a big contract, but a lot of members make good sideline money doing it.
Yes. And I was on the board for 5 years, and I was the national chair for the EEOC. So, we're a household.
Love it.
I retired, and he kept going. And I'm extremely proud. I'm proud of everybody on the team that has gone in to negotiate. They have been doing it in good faith. I'm just absolutely enamored of Fran Dresser's address to the press and what she has said, because it's true. I mean, you just cannot keep treating us like we're in 1890 and we're serfs of yours. We're not. There's no serfdom here. This is 2023, and people deserve and merit a salary that they can live on. Everybody from the guy who works over at my Salud Maria that I like to visit at Hot Mess, to the guys at the restaurant, to us actors. We're worker bees. This is a factory town. Everybody thinks this is some luxurious glam thing. No, there are a whole lot of us that are working class and middle class and upper middle class. Let's take those three categories, right? And then there's, way up there. All right. But what I wanted to discuss about back to the residuals, and I want to explain something, because I know there are people of the regular public who are going, but why should you keep getting paid for the job over and over? Well, that's like telling you, why are you being paid for your job every single day that you go to work? Because Once we give you our image, it's out there as many times as they want to expose you in that image. So, for instance, I know people who were on series for 5 or 6 years, and some of them made very good money, but because their image has been burnt and they've been associated with one character, that may be the most money they're ever going to make because they might not be able to make the move over to movies. A lot of them go back to the theater because they have some financial freedom to do so, and because theaters also should be paying more. So, so this is why we are given residuals. We're given residuals as a protection and a payment for the use of our images and voices over and over and over. So my husband is accurate and he is right. When the streaming thing started, like the girl that's all over Twitter with the Orange is New Black, she got 27 cents.
Yeah, that's an old
Right?
contract.
That's the old contract. Now, in 2017, we made it a fixed rate deal on streaming, right? But it's still not enough because you now have that product, and depending on how popular it is, it might be super popular. So you might be on that Netflix or HBO show or whatever streaming service for the next 20 years, and people in the business might say, she's on that show. It's still running. I don't think that it's going to work to put her in this comedy or this drama because everybody associates her with that show and you are not getting paid. You are not getting paid and your image is being put out there all the time. So, yes, the old contract was in the sense, but the problem is that I feel that our contract should have a fixed rate that's comparable to what a network rerun used to be, which was what William explained. So you'd be, let's say you were making the minimum acceptable for 8 days of work and you're getting like a 40% of that. That's the $3,700 he was talking about. So, okay, great. But that's what we should be being paid on streaming because now that show, you've worked for 4 months, you've done 10 episodes or whatever they're doing now, right? Which are short and seasoned. Also another issue on pay for writers and actors and crews, by the way. So now that show, let's say it's a hit on Netflix. Well, damn, it's running for the next 10 years on Netflix, but the only thing I'm collecting is $1,400 a year, right? That's not good.
And I have a great segue in here to one of other asks. A lot of this was driven by Fran, and what you saw in Fran's speeches the other day at the union and out on strike is really the authentic girl from Queens that you don't mess with because she really understands how the ground's laid. But she's been pushing, and as the committee is behind too, is the idea of revenue sharing, which Bob Iger said the other day. Part of his compensation is part of his compensation is he gets a bonus if he performs well. So our contention, because we're part and parcel, both us, the writers, the directors, creatives, everything, we're part and parcel to the success of something on a platform. Say you're in Orange is the New Black. Why shouldn't you, because it drives the success of the platform and it drives viewers there, why shouldn't you get a part of the revenue off of that? So we're actually pushing an idea that we think is very creative and very for successful shows. When they take off and become very successful, that you partake in part of that revenue as a bonus for helping this industry, as an industry create, because this industry makes their money on the backs of us and the creativity that we bring to play, both writers, directors, actors. We all crews, background, everybody brings in this collective effort to get something made that they then monetize and make money off of. And because our images are out there, particular about actors, our images are the representation of that product. And we become associated with that product, and that doesn't. And we just believe that we should partake in the success of that.
But it's just so cute because we become associated with the product. I mean, look at certain movies that I'm not going to mention any movies because that would be going against the strike. But let's just say, there are movies that have produced a lot of merchandise from those movies, and those people are actually now little dolls and action figures, or
their image is everywhere on all merchandise.
Unless an actor has that in his contract, he's not going to get any money for that. and they never want to deal with us on all the extracurricular stuff that they've managed to make from your participation in a movie or a TV show or whatever it is that you've done with the studios, and they're just reaping in the bucks, uh, over and over and over. So unless it's in your contract, you're not going to get any money for that either.
Well, not only that, not only the merchandise, but all the publicity that actors do for the projects, all the publicity. They don't get paid for that,
That's not true. Some actors do get paid.
but many don't. Many don't. It's in their contract. Isn't it in their contract a lot of times?
Publicity, but that's really only the top tier. You could be on the poster, but if your name's not there, you're not going to get any PR payment unless you're in the top tier. And a lot of times the top tier don't get paid for showing up at a festival or whatever it is they need to do. It's sort of all embodied in their
Right,
contract.
but it's not even stars. I went out on the road for a year. I didn't even get per diem. They just I got to go to these cities not knowing, hey, I could ask for money.
Well, that's a good point, Lydia. That's a really good point. Is that's why we continue to tell actors to go to the website, inform yourselves, know your contracts, know your rights, know what you can and cannot expect, know what you can and cannot ask for, and go out there and be an advocate for yourself in this business. Because if you're not, look, I've had auditions that were awful, and I've gone back and advocated for myself and said, look, that did not work. I'm sorry. Can I redo it? And I've gotten the yes, you can, and then book the job. So you have to learn to be an advocate for yourself in every aspect. Oh, did you want me to fly to New York to promote this thing that you did, this movie? Okay, well, my flight, this, and that. Know your rights.
I'm saying all of this of stuff that I had to learn as a young actor
Right.
because I didn't know any better. And so I'm in agreement with you that, it's important for all of us to know our contracts and know what we're doing. And that's part of what this conversation is,
Yes.
so that actors can be aware that we do have rights, that we can go to the union. We can say, hey, what do you think about this? I'm having issues. This doesn't feel right to me. If I'm going to be in a movie and it's an independent film and it gets bought by a major studio, do I have any rights? What can I do? How do I show up? I worked in the record business before I was able to get my union card. And in the record business, it was the same. The record companies dictated the artists. The artists didn't know anything. The artists never got to see their true statements. It's like that now. The actors don't get to see their true statements. It's like, right now the streamers are saying that they can't give us money because they're not making money, yet we can't see their statements.
No, we can't. We have no way, which is something that came out in this negotiations, is we have no way of tracking any of like how many times something runs on television. They don't tell us. The streaming companies are very opaque about any of their profits, or it was just amazing, that article that came out that Netflix made $900 million on Squid Games, and the Korean writer got nothing but the payment for the writing. Like, that's it, no residuals, nothing.
But part of our idea with the revenue sharing is that there are companies out there that are analyzing how things, like Parrot Analytics is the one that we brought in. We don't care if it is, but there are people that can measure use and how successful something is or isn't on those platforms to get to that. And the streamers say they're losing money is curious to me, because the companies that own those streamers are making money, and they're making a lot of money. And so for them this is typical corporate speak. They go, oh, our streaming service isn't making any money, but everything else that's part of that company is making money, and those streaming services are part of the reputation of that company and part of their ultimate bottom line. Look at Disney and its theme parks. All their theme parks are built off of movies. I mean, they're movies, or TV shows or whatever. It's intellectual property, so to speak, that they're building that off of. So things relate to each other. And I think that's part of our point in our issue.
But I think something really big happened when we went from family-owned studio systems to corporate-owned studio systems, and so we're now dealing under a completely different way of relating to us than when Warner Brothers was owned by, I don't know, was it Xanax, whatever. It's just a different world. So they stifle people also creatively as well. You now answer to the marketing executives and to what they think. Oh no, this doesn't fit our brand, which is why HBO became such a big hit when it came out, because it began to allow writers and actors to actually do our jobs, and not have to acquiesce to, oh, this is our brand, so this is ABC, Disney, we do this brand, oh, NBC, we do this brand, and it actually stifles creativity, and it's a shame, because what we do is we work to find the truth in humanity and what is out there, and to represent that, to paint the picture for you, and
Well, I think studios have always tried to crush the creatives. I mean, you could go back to Walt Disney when he tried to crush the animators because they wanted more money. That's not a new thing.
no,
The thing is that now it's gotten so blatant. It's gotten so blatant, and you're lucky that we let you in. That to me is what it feels. You're lucky. You're lucky I let you be in my project. You're lucky that you even have a line in it.
that's
That's the bullshit that we are dealing with right now.
Yeah.
I didn't know
So
first.
I would-
well, every now and then you gotta get a little hot under the collar.
That's right. But just to lead this conversation to something as simple as minimum compensation. Uh, 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 we all know, those of us that have been around a long time, that the idea of getting a quote is a thing of the past for the most part, for most actors. You used to have a quote. You get paid a certain amount. After years in the business, you get a certain amount of money. You were part of the supporting cast of a TV show, and you were there for, it's like ER. Think of all the people playing the nurses and the paramedics and things like that. They weren't series regulars, but the company at that time, they all got bumps. Every year, the next year, they got a bump. They got a bump. They got a bump. That's no longer the case, because Wall Street are bean counters. So they've squeezed everybody that's not a series regular. The series regular money people are making relatively decent money, although we have a whole issue with that too, because they're including advanced pay in their compensation. A lot of actors don't know that. So they're being bought out 10, 15 years into the future. But minimum compensation, just now, let's go to just so you can make a living in this business. It's so hard. But yeah, when we did a job before the strike, whatever we got paid, regardless of the 3% bump, we were still getting, there's been there's been a year of 10% inflation, a year of 8% inflation. We're so far behind the curve. We're now making less money now than we were making in 2017 when we work a single day. And everybody's working at scale plus 10. So just to get those numbers up, because it's a huge cost to them, because they all of a sudden have to fork out to all these people making $100 more on their day. It's pulling teeth. It's like pulling teeth. They have totally So the reason I'm bringing that is, if you go to the minimum compensation, just what we're worth integrity wise for days of work, not counting residuals, not counting anything, just for showing up to work, and how much you get paid for that day is this might be your first job in 6 months, because you've been auditioning every day for 5.5 months, and then you get a job, and that one job you get, if you're only working for a day, may not be enough to pay for the rent that month, and so there you go.
It's just not enough to make a living on, and let's face it, they're enormous across the industry. It's $10 billion. Executives are taking bonuses that really, instead of trickling down their expenses to us, they should be moving. Those bonuses don't need to be that big. There are people on crews that need raises. There are writers that need raises. We need raises. Directors, they need raises. I just don't get it. So it's just a matter of discounting us, like just stifling the humanity that we are and making you feel less than, like so scared to rock the boat or ask for your per diem that you're just like so lucky to be there, and that's the attitude that actors need to let go of, okay? Because when they want you, and they don't care what you've done. Really, honestly, just look at who's on TV and in the movies and some of the crap they've done in their lives. Nobody seems to care. No, they don't. Because if they think it's going to make them money, they'll put you there. So I wouldn't worry about that.
William, what are five or well, maybe not five, but what are some things that actors can do right now during the strike? What would you encourage actors to do?
Well, one, show up at a picket line, sign up, go to sagafterstrike.org, take the survey there, sign up to be a captain, sign up to picket. You don't have to picket every day, but show up and show your support.
So don't go to the offices.
No.
Go to the computer,
Yeah.
sign up, and then go to one of the locations where we're picketing.
Lists are being sent out at the beginning of each week. We're getting sent out most of the picketing locations in LA and New York. And we're looking for opportunities outside of those two major centers. Most of the picketing times are like 9 to 1, and you go, you sign up, you show up, and you meet a lot of great people to begin with. Yeah. I'll tell you that on these lines, you meet a lot of tremendously great people. You'll be rubbing shoulders with the star of a TV series, and you barely recognize them because they've got their sunglasses and their sunblock and their huge hats on. Because we have a tremendous amount of support. So that's the main thing that you can do.
Take to social media.
Yeah, take to social media.
And what should we do on social media?
Well, I think you should continue to promote the strike, continue to promote the times and days that we will be at the different studios, because we're striking at every single studio in New York and Los Angeles from 9 to 1, 9 to 2, 9 to 1 on a Friday. So you find all that information. But there's other things, too, that actors need to know, and is the fact that if they do run into any financial issues, you can go to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. You can go to the Entertainment Community, which used to be the Actors Fund, Community Fund. You can go to the MPTV, the Motion Picture Television Academy.
It's the Motion Picture Welfare Fund.
Right. They changed all the names last year.
Now, let me ask you a question. To be able to go to those funds, you need to be union?
You need to be union. Absolutely. These are funds that are provided for union members, and there's certain parameters, but you can definitely, if you are finding yourself in any kind of a problem, and don't go unless you really are in a problem, because there are people that are going to need those funds, right? So don't abuse it. But there will be, they can pay your rent, they can pay a couple of bills, they can help you stay above water. They also have programs. The other thing you can do is keep participating in the union. We're still going to be putting out videos. We're still going to be putting out information that is useful for actors for when we are done with the strike, and we can get back to work, and hopefully with a little more dignity and respect from the studios, right? So there's that.
Right, and I want to add, if you are in a position to, by all means, donate to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation and donate to the Entertainment Community Fund. And you can earmark that money for strike assistance if you want, especially the SAG-AFTRA Fund. And I just wanted to say one more thing about the strike. The idea of a strike is not to strike. The idea of a strike is to get a really good contract and to use withholding of our services to get the contract that we feel that we deserve. So that's the end game. The end game is not to strike. The end game is to get a really good contract, and we have to stay focused on that. And people need to understand that and stay focused. I think most people know that, but sometimes it just helps to articulate it that this is the beginning, right, to getting to the right place.
I also want to add to that, as an actor. So you sign up, you go ahead to the picket lines, you support the strike, but you also continue to work on your craft. Take your classes, keep yourself sharpened, because the strike will come to an end and work will be available, and we want to be ready for that.
Yeah, the other thing that they should know is that on the website, you'll find 4 pages of information as to what you can and cannot do at this moment. Like, there's a little bit of confusion, but there's a lot of things that you can participate in. Look, we're not striking the commercials contract, so you can keep auditioning for commercials. And if you're a theater actor, we're not
Or if
equity's
you,
not
or if
striking.
you, or if you,
You know,
or if you've decided you've long wanted to shoot that little movie with your friends that takes place in your kitchen, and you use the SAG after a micro budget contract, you can do that.
That's right. You can
You know,
participate in independent projects that have no association with the studios.
that
You can,
you have to check with that because the bigger budget independent projects need waivers, and there'll be lists of
right.
waivers, shows that have been waived.
Yeah, but there are festivals also that are not backed by any AMPTP stuff that you can still visit, participate, see their movies, promote something if you did a small short. So the main thing is to keep yourself absolutely informed. And Lydia, you're right. People should be working on their craft. It's a good time to take up new hobbies also to keep yourself healthy. Go out, take a run, work out. This is a perfect time to take a break and get into optimum shape, and get your instrument at,
Are you saying
full
I'm not in
fighting.
shape?
Uh, the most encouraging thing there was
Stop it! Stop it!
the most encouraging, the most encouraging thing there was to see really in the lines at the studios were how many young people were there.
Yeah.
And Lydia, I met a couple who had just moved here from Florida and they were just starting out their career and they were like, oh, well, we're striking. They were on a picket line, much like your story.
We've been talking about the strike this whole time, but I want to bring it back to the union. I want to know what from each of you, what is it that you love about being a union member?
I was so excited to get my SAG card. And back in the day, I'm really aging myself, you could do an under 5 on a soap opera and join AFTRA, and you automatically qualified to join SAG. I was just like so excited. I think because that excitement as a younger person came because that meant that I was going to be considered professional. I was going to be considered somebody that they wanted to hire. And I do know that as the largest entertainment business, union in the world, that we provide quality product. So I'm proud to be a member of a union that I know, like all of us, like we deliver the goods. So that's the first thing that made me really proud to be part of the union. The protections that they gave us, protections on set. I've had to take my clothes off. There was a time. And I felt very, very protected because I knew there was a union rep and people were actually taking care of me. And this is way back before we had intimacy coordinators and stuff like that.
And for those who don't know what an intimacy coordinator is, it's somebody who is hired to make sure the actors are not abused or violated in any way during a very intimate scene.
There is to help choreograph and also to make sure both actors or whoever's involved in that intimate scene are comfortable with the scene and what they're doing and feel safe.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue, we've all heard stories about the abuses of that. But back on the union thing, no, I only ever wanted to be a professional actor when I got out of school. And to me, being a professional actor means being in the union. It means being able to make enough money to put food on the table, to raise a daughter. I sent her to college. All on the income of an actor. And I don't think I would have done that if I had pursued being non-union, if I'd pursued making, $50 for a commercial. Right. My dad once shot a commercial in New Hampshire. He got paid $50 for it. It was famous in New Hampshire. He was a retired military man. He was famous in New Hampshire. He walked in and said, "Hey, I lost my wife." And it ran for 4 or 5 years. He was noticeable on all the streets and he got paid $50. So I feel very strongly about it and about those protections, knowing that if there's an issue, I can call the union. Now, I also have been around long enough to know that some issues may not get fixed right away, but they will eventually get fixed. Or I'll make a residuals claim, which I've done on a commercial that I've seen in the middle of nowhere and said, why is my commercial still on the air? I haven't paid for that. And had the union chase it down for me and get me thousands upon thousands of dollars. And the same thing with friends. So you have a whole list of protections.
You just said something I want actors to really get. How can they, if they see a commercial that they've done and they've not gotten their residual, Who do they call at the union to find out how they can?
You have to go to the union, look for just plug in on the search side, file a commercials claim. On the website, there's a direct for a commercial claim specifically, and there's a different process for filing a theatrical claim.
Right.
Either way, you have to go on the website basically and fill out some paperwork saying
File claims, people. File your claims.
Don't
I
be shy.
love it.
Not be shy. So let people know that something's not right on a set. You know, if you see it, say something. You know, call. It's anonymous. You're not going to be singled out.
You're not going to be shamed. The union's not going to shame you and go, "How dare you call us?"
Unless we know that there's something that's not working, we can't go in to try and fix it because we actually need evidence, right? We actually need evidence. You just can't go up to them and go, "Hey, this is what's going on," because they go, "Really, prove it."
actually a claim portal on the website. So if you go to the SAG-AFTRA website, there's actually a portal. Do it all on the website. You just have to go and file a complaint, and you'll file a claim, and you'll make your way there. But this is precisely one of the great protections, right? You have these people that will chase the money down. They'll chase a violation down for you. Ideally, you shouldn't have to make a stink on the set, so you can just get around your job and not become the issue. You should be able to call your rep, and the reps are often overwhelmed, so there's not often an immediate solution to it. But you can call them, and they'll go to bat for you. They do. They're passionate.
That's right.
And they work hard. I don't think we have too few reps, and
But keep calling. Keep calling. Keep calling. That's the.
and go to the site. The website's constantly being updated. But you just have to go. You can go to the site and file a claim via the site. You'll get a tracking number, and you've got to follow up. You just got to, and you have to be persistent. You always have to be persistent. It is a bureaucracy on some level, so you do have to keep pushing at it.
And the other thing that we liked about the union is that we like serving the union.
Yeah.
My husband's doing it for 13 years. I did it for 5, 7 actually. So there was really a great joy in being able to participate with other actors and help them whatever way that you could, you know. So and being on negotiating committees is not easy. It's just not easy.
How can actors serve at the union?
Okay, 2 things. You're going to say get on a committee, which is
Get
one
on
thing.
a committee,
But-
and you can do that at every election. You know, there's
Right.
forms that you fill out, and you can maybe get a shot and get chosen for a
And
committee.
make sure you're on the email list.
Right.
So we have an opt-out policy, so you actually have to. But people opt out because they think they're getting too many emails, and then those same people complain that they never hear anything from the union. Read your emails. There's great information that comes out of the emails. But 2 things. One, you can get involved on a committee, but hands down, the single most best way to start getting involved in the union is whenever we have a working and wages conditions committee meetings, which happen before the commercials contract and happen before the TV theatrical contract,
And the next
and the net code to a lesser extent. They are the best way to show up, start listening, because you'll find out that all the problems you're having, 20 other people are having the same problem.
right.
Or that we've tried to fix this issue before, we're still having a problem. So let's get some creativity. It's the best way to start getting involved because you start showing up, you start getting to know other people involved at the union. So it's all about the members. The union. I keep hearing this phrase that we're a member-run union. No, we're a member-led union. In other words, all of our leadership at the union are volunteer leaders. Staff run the mechanics of the union. So, but we are member leaders. In other words, we set the course in terms of where the union needs to go, and staff basically follows us. So that's the best way to get involved. Committees, watching for those committee forms that come out after every election at the end of August, beginning of September. Fill them in, but you also need to get to know people that are involved at the union. It's not, I always love it. I put in for service at the union. I said, you know anybody? Did you call me? You know me? No, I didn't think I needed to. Well, I would have put in a marker. I would have said, hey, you're chair of this committee. I think someone I know just put in for that committee. So they're great. You should talk to them.
Well, that's helpful.
yeah.
Or unless you're lucky and you have a chair like me, a national chair,
Yeah,
that
well,
called everybody that applied for the
The
job.
good chairs.
And
all
I
do that.
interviewed every single person that sent in an application for the EEOC. And then I chose an amazing team of people that produced more diversity events around the country than any other EEOC committee before us. And
Bertilla, I wouldn't expect anything less of you.
well,
People across the country would say, now this is because she really did
I did
make
do
an
that.
effort to reach out across the country
Absolutely, we're
to
national.
the other local chairs and talk about them, what they
But that's who you are,
Like
Bertilla. That is who you are. See,
money.
I think let me just say this about you, Bertilla. You leave no stone unturned.
she does.
You are no, you don't do things half-assed. You show up. You want everything to be up to par. You want excellence, and we should all strive for that.
I want people to feel included, which is the beauty of the union. I want people in all my life. I'm like that. I want people to feel loved and included
Mhm.
and respected and heard. I mean, I'll tell you, I've heard a lot of stuff on that committee over 7 years, and every single person got to be heard. And many people made tremendous contributions. Our team was amazing. I just want to tell people, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Get excited, and it's true. There are a lot of things that are going to happen in the next couple of months. I don't know how long we're going to be on strike, but keep the faith, reach out for help. If you need help, reach out. There are people, you can find me on Twitter. I let anybody DM me, but you're going to have to prove you're a member of SAG, okay? And I know how to find out. SAG-AFTRA, thank you. And I do it all the time. I know. I do it all the time. But anyway, reach out for help if you need help. Look to the website, be informed, stay in shape and ready to use your instrument. But most of all, be courageous. Get out there and fight for yourselves. Get in those picket lines, meet other actors, get encouraged. Let's just do this because what we want is to be treated fairly with respect, to have a dignified life. Dignity. That's what we're fighting for.
And to be able to make our living. We want to be able to make our living at our craft and not have to have other jobs in order to support our craft. It's like when you're starting in the business, you need other jobs to help you through. You don't want the rest of your life to be about, I got to keep having other jobs in order to be an actor. It would be nice. It would be nice to be able to make your living as an actor. It would be nice.
It's always good to have another sideline passion in terms of this because we know that this business is hard. And I know actually some very successful actors that have sidelines. They might have a real estate sideline. I know an actor who has a clothing shop in Larchmont. And he's pretty successful. He works a lot, but he has a clothing shop because it's another sort of passion kind of thing he's got going. He likes to sell things. And there's nothing wrong with having sideline careers.
There's nothing wrong with having streams of income.
That's right.
But when you can't make a living at your art, that is heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking.
Especially when you're putting in so much into your craft.
Yeah, I mean, the days of, a headshot to a casting director are over. And I just don't think it's fair that we have to pay to interview for a job.
Are you saying I
It's
should take all the
insane.
headshots in my car out?
Oh, wow. You still have them?
Sorry.
Really, we shouldn't, I couldn't believe that after we had pretty much cleared a lot of what the more serious issues of the pandemic, that people weren't having us back in their offices. I mean, there's so many ways. I worked throughout the pandemic. I was tested. I worked on one production where no one got sick till the very last day, and they were like in the outside group, right? So I think they just keep taking advantage and taking advantage. We haven't had a strike on this contract in 43 years. I think we've been damn good sports about a lot of stuff.
So you just outed Lydia about how long she's been in the business.
Yes, I have. It has been 45 years.
It's amazing. She was a top
45 years.
But I'm just saying, like, that 43 years we haven't struck on this contract, which means that we've put up with a lot of crap that we didn't need to, that we've been good sports in the face of being treated with such indignity and disrespect. So it's time that they get off it and stop acting like they're, some frigging royalty. It's just the weirdness of what's happening in the country right now. And this strike is about all working people.
Well, one thing I want to add to that, I want to quote Fran Drescher. I wrote this down. We are all going to be in jeopardy of being replaced by machines. Big businesses care more about Wall Street than they do about your family.
Right.
Most Americans don't have $500 in the bank. And that's a sad truth. And we have to fight. We have to fight to stop that. The only way it's going to happen is if we stop it. That it's not going to happen if we just keep going, oh, this is a shame, and we keep going to work. And it's like, you don't like what they're doing, don't cancel your subscription. You don't like what they're doing, don't go buy in that store. You don't like what they're doing, don't get on that airline. You don't like what they're doing. We have to remember our money is power, and we can withhold it from anybody we want if they're not giving us what we want. And so on that note, I say thank you so much. This was the best. You guys were amazing. And I want to say, for those watching and those who have stood with us throughout the entire time, you can reach Bertilla and William on not just Twitter, but also on Instagram. They both have Instagram stuff.
I never go to my
Oh,
Instagram.
you don't? You just go to your Twitter?
I only posted something about the strike on Instagram. Yeah, I don't do Facebook anymore.
Twitter's over, right?
Okay.
Threads. It's now Threads, people. It's now Threads.
I'm not going. I don't do Insta and I don't do Facebook. You'll find my profiles there, but I'm not there. And I like to just deal with the political situation on Twitter and put in my complaints for the day, 30 times a day, And so, yeah, that's the place to.
Okay, Twitter for Bertilla. And where can we find you, William?
Instagram, Facebook. I'm on all three. I tend to not post very often, although in Facebook, I'm in several union groups where I'll just put in a little bit of corrective information from time to time. I try not to get into arguments because I found social media arguments on those platforms are kind of useless.
What's your favorite way for people to contact you on social media? What is the best way?
Instagram's probably better.
Instagram. And I'll have your information in the description.
Thank you so much for your commitment to actors.
Thank you.
Actors.
Thank you. Listen.
Pride. We are proud of you, Mama.
I am a believer in supporting fellow artists because we make the world go round. We are the good medicine.
Yes.
We bring good medicine to people. I'll say this one last thing about Fran Drescher. When she said, when we were on lockdown, I'm paraphrasing, but when she said we were on lockdown and it was the actors, they were watching what we had done.
That's right.
They couldn't go anywhere. So what did they do? They binge watch all the TV shows that were available for them to watch. It wouldn't be possible if there were no actors to do that with.
But Lydia, we really want to thank, because not only have we gotten support from Americans and American unions, but we've gotten support internationally from other unions around the world. We have been on international news. I've been getting texts from Prague, from India. This has been an issue that has affected, it seems to be really worldwide, and we're getting a lot of support. So I want to thank everybody that has come forward to support us in every way, and just thank you and keep doing it, because we're only at the beginning. This was day one, Friday. So picketing on Monday, people, tomorrow.
We get back to work tomorrow. So right. Thank you for watching this. This program has been brought to you by ActingSmarterNow.com, where you can get your Acting Smarter planner, or you can take the course so that you can be a more informed actor of what you need to do to be in the business once the strike is over and we are back to work.